Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. I'm Justin Thomas, and I'm being joined by Brian Murphy and Taylor Ragland here to talk a little Class 5A boys basketball as we hit the midpoint. So, fellas, thanks for joining me here. Brian, do you want to start in your neck of the woods?
Where should we start?
We can see what's going on over there in Frisco in 9-5A.
Brian's already in soccer mode.
Yeah.
Man, I'm about to start doing softball and baseball. It's nuts.
You need to start getting in soccer mode in that Frisco district, because I think you got some teams that won state championships and stuff last year.
I did. I mean, that's for another podcast. Good teaser for next week's podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already the third game in the district season. I already covered soccer last week, and I'll be at soccer again tomorrow at the Star. So, but trying to focus on basketball.
Yeah, we'll stick to basketball here. So, you want to recap the standings real quick here? So we got Frisco Lone Star in first at 11-0. I believe they are state ranked. Frisco Liberty in second at 9-2. We got a tie for third between Frisco and Frisco Heritage at 7-4. Can I stop saying Frisco every time? I guess. We got Reedy next at 6-5. They're tied with Lakeland, also 6-5. Independence at 5-6, and then bringing up the bottom of the standings, Centennial and Memorial 2-9, and then Lebanon Trail 1-10. Anything stand out to you?
So just like the girls, it's Liberty and Lone Star, you know, at 1 and 2, kind of separating themselves a little bit. But then you have this weird logjam between 3 and 7. You know, Frisco, they started off hot. They were 5-0 to begin district. They beat Liberty in the very first game of the year in overtime, and they've kind of lost some games they shouldn't have. They lost to Reedy, lost to Heritage, stuff like that. And then Heritage, they've lost some games that they should have won as well. To teams like Reedy. Reedy's kind of, you know, they went winless last year in the boys basketball district, and now here they are, 6-5. All of a sudden, you know, last year they were losing all these close games. That they had lost a total amount of games, like 4 or 5 games they had lost by 1 to 4 points or something like that last year, but they're winning those games now.
Yeah.
And now they're 6-5, and you know, 1 game out of a playoff spot. But Wakeland is right there too. They were a really young team last year. You know, guys like Austin Lewis and Cooper Cisco and stuff like that. They're really elevated their game, and you know, they're right there in the thick of things at 6-5. And then Independence last year makes the playoffs at 7-7, and they're 5-6 now. They graduate their best player they've ever had in Brian Maxey, stud point guard. And you think, okay, Independence is going to kind of take a step back. And here they are, you know, 7th, but 2 games out of a playoff spot in this district. And the thing with Frisco Heritage is they don't really have size, but they have probably the best guard play in the district. And you know, that can only take you so far when you're playing big teams like Lone Star, and then you have playing a team like Liberty, who has the best guard in the district in Zion Richardson. So this is really all over the place. You know, Lone Star, they've been really, really impressive. Mm-hmm. They struggled at the beginning of the year in non-district before their football guys came in, because Lone Star football was making a deep playoff run. They went 3 rounds deep, and so they didn't have guys like Marvin Mims and Julian Larry. And I saw them get blown out of the water by Little Elm. Granted, it's Little Elm, but you know, this was, you know, late November, early December, something like that. And I was like, man, Lone Star not looking too good. They get those guys back. They get the full roster, and they're just plowing through everyone in this district. And you know, their rematch, just like on the girls' side, they'll face Liberty very last game of the year on February 5th.
I guess it seems weird to have a 7th place team so close to the playoff race, but I guess when you have 10 teams instead of 8 or 7 or even 6, it makes it a little more jumbled there.
And one thing to note, so Memorial and Lebanon Trail, on the girls' side, Memorial is most likely going to make the playoffs in the 4 seed. Lebanon Trail not too far behind, flirting with the 500 mark. But then on the boys' side, they're 2-9 and 1-10.
Not transitioning quite as easily.
It's interesting. And then you look at volleyball. Lebanon Trail did so well in girls' volleyball; they made the playoffs. But in guys' sports, I don't know what it is. I think, you know, needing seniors is key. You know, we saw that in football for obvious reasons, and then in boys basketball, the 2 teams are struggling. But you know, they'll be up there. They'd give them another year or 2, and they'll be in the mix.
We'll jump over to 8-5A now. we all have teams in this district that we cover, and we've been treated to some very good basketball. This is one of the better districts in not only the area but in the state, I would say, especially when you look at the top 3 teams.
I was going to say the top half. I can run down the standings. I have them here. You know, you have Little Elm 5-1, just Northwest 5-1, the Colony at 4-2, and then after that, it kind of, you know, the level of talent.
It's the others.
It's the others, and one of the others is going to get in the playoffs. Probably, you know, Denton Ryan and Denton Braswell both at 3-3, and then you have Denton and Lake Dallas bringing up the rear. Denton 1-5, the only win coming over Lake Dallas.
You mentioned those top 3 teams comprise 3 of the top 11 teams in the whole state in 5A. With the newest rankings just come out. You have Northwest in 7th, to the dismay of Bryan, because they've lost to Little Elm and the Colony, who are 10th and 11th respectively.
It literally makes no sense. So you're Little Elm. You already have a win over South Garland on your resume from the holiday break. And then you go beat Northwest at Northwest. And then with a hurt R.J. Hampton, then you go beat the Colony at the Colony with an R.J. Hampton buzzer beater with like 6 seconds left. And then, granted, they lose the next game to Braswell. Braswell, really fortunate, by the way, to get to play Little Elm at the worst possible time for the Lobos' sake. You know, RJ doesn't play that game. He finally rests. I believe it's a groin injury. He's been nursing for quite some time
Maybe
now.
a little letdown just in general for the whole team after that crazy overtime win on the road against the Colony.
It's I don't think they should get punished for that. And I know Northwest, they've been plowing through everyone. I don't know how they did against the Colony. I didn't see that.
It was a 3-point game.
So it's close. So it's not like Northwest is like, all right, we came back with a big win over the Colony and this and that. No, they just lost at home to Little Elm, and then they get rewarded by getting bumped back up in the standings. It's like, okay, because safe to say if RJ plays against Braswell, they win by 15 at least. But they're the beneficiary of a hurt R.J. Hampton at the right time. And Denton Ryan is interesting there because they're tied there with Braswell. They took Little Elm down to the wire when Little Elm was quote-unquote full strength.
Yeah, it was Colony a good game as well.
Yeah, I think Denton Ryan is a much better team than Braswell.
This is a pretty good district at the top. Braswell's given everybody a fight as well. In regards to those top 3 teams, though, I've got to see. I haven't seen just Northwest play, but I've seen Little Elm, and obviously I've seen the Colony. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of separation between those 3 teams, and it's going to be fun to see, not really even how it plays out in district, but just to see how these teams do in the playoffs, because there's going to be some playoff games between these teams, I think.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, the rankings are what they are. I'm sure they're bulletin board material and all that kind of stuff for the teams, but the reality is all 3 of these teams are elite. All 3 of these teams have a chance to make a really nice playoff run. All 3 are very good, and all 3 are leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the district, which, like we said, there is Ryan and Braswell there at 3-3. One of those teams is going to get in the playoffs, probably. I don't see anybody. I certainly don't see Lake Dallas making any sort of crazy run from 0-6, and Denton, like I said, has only beaten Lake Dallas to drop them to 0-6, Denton at 1-5. So I think those teams are effectively out of it, especially in a smaller district. It's just so hard to make up ground. You talk about those Frisco districts. When you have 7 teams, it's so much harder to pick off wins from. You can't pick off wins from the middle. You got to go everybody above you to kind of climb back up. So
you almost have to give Braswell the edge there, just on the strength of that win over RJ-less Little Elm. If they can come back and beat Ryan, it's tough to see them being held out.
Yeah, well, and
you don't see any of those other teams getting a win against the top 3 like that.
And Ryan has some weird results. I mean, Lake Dallas, Ryan, I should say, only beat Lake Dallas like 79-73 or something. So there is a possibility that, Ryan can have. And Lake Dallas, I want to be clear, is not an awful basketball team. I mean, they're not terrible. It's one of those districts where, they just don't have the size and the ability inside especially to overcome Little Elm, Northwest, and the Colony. They just don't. I think they can hang with some of these other teams, especially down near the bottom. But even Braswell, when I saw them play Braswell, that game it's obvious the deficit they have as far as, size and matchups inside and all that kind of thing. Like Dallas lives and dies by the fact if they can shoot the 3 on any given night. So I didn't see that Denton Ryan game. I assume that's what probably happened. They were probably just really hot from beyond the arc, and that can kind of keep them in some games. But like I said, it's a 3-horse race for the district title. Really a 2, I would say, for the title, because the Colony probably. I mean, who knows, though? You never know on any given night.
You're talking about running the table just to try to get into a tie, so it's going to be tough there.
It all depends on the health of R.J. Hampton.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if he stays banged up down the stretch, they still have to play Northwest and the Colony again. And if they don't have R.J. Hampton, those games are not going to be close. Because if you can't even hanging there with Roswell, who lost by 13 to them. One other thing to note, Little Elm plays Lake Dallas on Friday, and Little Elm won by 40-something points the first time they played. But if you take R.J. Hampton out, who scored 43 in that game, Lake Dallas give them a run for the money. Yeah, there you go. So
especially if they shoot. I mean, it's a weird position for Lake Dallas because I think the goal the rest of the way has to be just to try to pick up some wins, maybe pick off a team, play a little bit of spoiler. But it can happen. I mean, if you shoot 15 for 20 from 3, which they're capable of doing with a couple of guys they have, then who knows? I mean, crazy things happen.
I think the other interesting thing is we obviously have been spending much of this time talking about the top 3 teams, the 3 state-ranked teams, and I think it's just interesting how kind of differently they all go about it. You have Little Elm, who has the standout,
the guards,
the guards, but not in particular. They have RJ, a premier talent in the whole country,
and Trey White, the freshman's
playing well.
He's 6'5", he plays like a guard, and he's I've been told he's nationally ranked in whatever freshman rankings they have. Right. So he's kind of like a younger version of RJ Hampton. You have Brandon Crossley, who's one of the best athletes in that district. He's a terrific football player going to Colorado State, and then he's their like lockdown guard on defense. One of the quickest guys you'll see on the floor. They just don't really have that size, but Northwest, they have that size.
Northwest, I was going to say, they might not have the 5-star, but they have a bunch of 3 and 4s
they have
that
a 4-star
are going to be playing at the next level. And then you have the Colony, who doesn't have kind of that standout player, but just gets it from everywhere, plays good defense. So I think it's kind of intriguing. Just these 3 teams all seem to be very close, but they all seem to go about it in different ways, with different roster constructions.
It'll be interesting down the stretch too, because I mean, if RJ is hurt for an extended period, it almost becomes like, do we feel like we get to a point where maybe we kind of lock up a postseason berth and then not forget about the district title, but do you start resting RJ because he's so critical to any playoff success you're going to have? Does that make Northwest, and then the seeding becomes weirard. So it
seems like that might kind of be what's happening right now, because there was rumors about RJ being banged up, and personally, I don't think he was missing that Colony game regardless.
Right.
That's their rival. But then he comes back the next day. Obviously he wasn't terribly injured. He scored 32 points and hit the game winner, but then maybe they rest him a little bit against that Braswell game.
Yeah.
Maybe losing that will change how they approach it moving forward.
Yeah, because then you look at their next few games, it's Denton, and it's Lake Dallas, then Denton, and then Denton Ryan again in 2 weeks. So it's like they could almost they could afford to not play him and maybe still pick up wins, and then have him healthy again when the second time around when Northwest and the Colony comes to town. Those 2 games against Northwest and the Colony are both at Little Elm also. That could be a big factor. Because that game at Northwest was really chippy and it was really hostile. There was kind of an altercation at midcourt. I don't know if y'all heard about that. Team, coaches and cops and stuff had to break things up. People were coming in from the stands. I think Northwest was just shocked that they were beaten on their home floor. So those will be 2 definitely interesting games to watch. Tuesday, February 5th is when they play Northwest, and then Friday, February 8th is when Little Elm and the Colony rematch at Little Elm.
Very good. Well, that'll about do it for the first half here, looking at Districts 8 and 5. Coming up, we'll take looks at District 10-5A, 11-5A, and 13-5A. That features McKinney North. And before we get to that, our Kendrick Johnson was out interviewing McKinney North's Chris Bucy for our Spotlight Athlete of the Week. And you can check that out after a word from our sponsor.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
Ken Johnson, McKinney North, senior captain and one of the leaders of the North Bulldogs, Chris Bucy. Give us an insight to this hot start y'all got off the district and basically halfway to a district title. It's kind of crazy because y'all got only 5 teams to play.
Yes, sir. Started off 3-0, and we're looking to carry that, play Denison and Princeton, and it's just been crazy. As before district, we played good, and then we just carried it in district. So.
How much do y'all talk about the fact that people didn't pick out to win district? Y'all were returning a good team.
Yeah, it's definitely a chip on our shoulder. They all picked Lovejoy to win, and we came out on the road and beat them. So it's definitely a chip on our shoulder every game.
Talk about how that tough non-district schedule got y'all prepared for this district. Because I saw some serious 6A teams and some of the elite 5A teams that you might see in regionals and in the playoffs.
Yes, sir. We played a lot of 6A teams, just getting us ready for district and tough schedule. You know, Coach Kraft loves a tough schedule, and it was good for us just to get better, work on our stuff for district. So it's good work for us.
On a personal note, how's it cool to be the unofficial city champs of McKinney, being that y'all beat y'all beat High and y'all beat Boyd?
Yeah, it's really cool to, you know, bring them in here and play Boyd and High, big crowd, and come out on top for both, basically, rest of McKinney.
What's your confidence level like? Especially the McKinney game, it seemed like that's when y'all were playing at y'all best. Everybody was doing their role. You hit a couple big shots. Brandon Frazier did his thing down low. It was just a team effort. How much is that carried over into district?
Nothing but confidence for us, and to know that everyone can come in, play a big role, and win big wins. You know, coming down to the wire, overtime against High, it's nothing but confidence for us, just down the road.
Give some insight to the Bulldog practice. How do y'all practice to get y'all ready for the game?
Tough practices. Coach walks us through. We do drills every day. We get up a lot of shots. Post players do a lot of post work, and then get ready for our next game.
How big an impact has Coach Kraft made on this program? Because everybody knows he's the man with the plan, but it's like you can watch y'all play 4 times, and y'all play 4 different ways, which is very hard to do in high school. So how's the fact that y'all kind of change y'all identity each game based off who y'all play?
Yeah,
kind of like the Patriots.
Yeah, Coach always has, you know, the perfect game plan for us to give us the best chance to win. And all we have to do is buy into what he's saying, and it's easy for us. All we have to do is listen to what he says, buy in.
What are 2 or 3 things that you learned about your team in non-district that's helped y'all so far now that district's here?
I learned that we play better at home, and no matter what, it's how we play, not who we play. Coach taught us that one. It's a good saying.
Y'all haven't even lost in this gym this year. Y'all undefeated at home, aren't y'all?
Yeah, we undefeated at home.
How big a deal is that to finish the season without a blemish on that record here?
That's a big deal because knowing that we could come back at home and play better, but we still got to play good on the road if we want to be district champs. So.
How much does it bother you the fact that y'all got to this hot start and people still not believing in y'all? Like, yeah, they just all right. They don't do nothing really good. They get lucky.
Yeah, it's a chip on our shoulder. All the people saying that we can't do it just makes us want it even more. So.
The fact that y'all got these wins in the pocket, what do y'all learn about these teams? Because this district, nobody knew nobody, so it's kind of completely new. Usually, you're like, okay, we know what the Colony do. They bring this. We know Little Elm's got R.J. Hampton. So what do y'all learn about these teams that's going to help y'all when y'all see them again the second time?
Yeah, our coach has us a good game plan going into all these games, but now facing them, we know what they're going to bring the next time, so we'll know what they'll do then too.
Does it give y'all extra confidence? The fact it's y'all hard to match up with because you got the Frazier boys downside and Nick, you got yourself and number 3. How you say his last name?
Chase Antosca.
Atosca, outside on the perimeter. So it's like y'all can play fast, y'all can play slow. How much confidence do y'all have the fact that y'all can win in a variety of ways? Y'all not just a half-court team, y'all that's a full-court team.
That gives us a lot of confidence because we know if we're not hitting an outside shot, you know we can pound it inside with Brandon and his brother and Nick, like you said. Or if like I'm not hitting, Chase can hit, or Todd can hit, or point guards can hit. So it gives us a lot of confidence knowing that we don't have to play one type of way. We can play either way.
And how's the chemistry? Because like you can go for 20, Brandon Frazier can go for 20. We saw Todd Jones do it the other day. How's the fact that it can be a different person in each game, and nobody has an ego about it as long as y'all get that win?
Yeah, everyone's about the team first. If whoever's scoring, keeps scoring, but they're not all about themselves. It's about the whole team. So confidence is nothing but high for us, and the chemistry on the team is very good. We're all like a brotherhood. We're all a team.
And final question, how do y'all keep from playing to the level of y'all opponent? Because sometimes y'all play down to the level of these teams, and sometimes and most times when y'all play a hard team, y'all play up. Yeah. How do y'all get to a consistent level where it doesn't matter who y'all playing, y'all play at that high level North basketball?
Yeah, Coach keeps saying it's not who we play, it's how we play, and we just got to keep playing like it's the biggest game of our career, like the next game. So we just got to keep playing like it is.
You got a message for Bulldog Nation that's been supporting y'all?
Thanks for supporting us. Hopefully we'll be district champs for you guys and just keep showing out, and we'll do our thing.
Well, thanks to Chris Bucy of McKinney North for joining us on the podcast today. We're continuing our coverage of mid-district recaps of Class 5A boys basketball, and switching it out here, I'm joined by Kendrick, who covers McKinney, and Devin, who does Garland and Mesquite. So guys, we're at the halfway point for most of our districts. Looks like your district may be a little behind still because it's only the 6th team, but for most of us, we're at the halfway mark here. So we're gonna
still at the halfway point. Just they only play.
I guess that's true. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's a good starting point if you want to start over in 10-5A where McKinney North resides, Kendrick. Just to go over the standings real quick, you have North in first at 3-0. They're followed by Princeton and Lovejoy, tied for second at 2-1, and then you have a tie for fourth between Denison and Sherman at 1-2, and then you have Wiley East bringing up the rear at 0-3. Kendrick, any surprise to see the Bulldogs on top there?
At first, I've seen them play multiple times. Very well coached. Props to Coach Daryl Kraft. He just recently won his 300th game. Props to him. But he has this team balanced where they can beat you in a fast up-tempo game. They can beat you down low because they got height and size. They got a 6'7" monster named Brandon Frazier, who's one of the best tight ends in the nation, but he's an athletic guy. He's putting up 20-10, and he plays basketball for fun.
Yeah, right.
And they got another guy. His brother is 6'4", 210, and he's a freshman, and he's starting on most teams. He comes off the bench. And then they also have J.J. Henry, and they got outside shooting with Chris Bucy, Zach Antosca. They just have a collection of talent where they can plug and play, and they can beat you anything. They can beat you in a 20-20 game, 22-20 game, or a 75-70 game. So they're going to be a dangerous out. And in this district, I don't think people can match that up and downness in the way they can counter any move.
They have a lot of experience on the roster. Is this what you were expecting, or is it some new faces?
This team last year, they've been in the playoffs. This will be the 10th year in a row they've been in the playoffs. This team has not a lot of varsity experience. Yeah. So they got people that were on the team, but they weren't contributing. So now they've gotten a lot. They had a very tough non-district schedule. They played a lot of high-profile 6A teams and held their own. So playing against 5A teams, I don't want to say it's a walk in the park, but compared to their non-district schedule, they've been very prepared and tested. And then they've seen good teams like the Colony and stuff in other districts. And tournaments in Louisville, who has one of the best freshmen I've seen in a while. So we talked
about him on our 6A podcast a little bit.
So they've been battle tested, and they even went to Oklahoma and played against Tulsa Union, who's a perennial powerhouse, and beat them in a tournament. So they're basically trying to get their stuff ready because the only problem I would see with the Bulldogs is they play the level of their opponent. Yeah. Like they win the games, they'll get up for the high teams and they'll play down to the low teams, but they find a way to get the win. So that's all that matters, getting them W's.
Obviously haven't played everybody yet, but they rolled pretty easy over Wiley East and Sherman, and then had looks like a pretty decent game against Lovejoy. Do you see anybody possibly being able to catch them for first place?
No, because they got too much size. Nobody can compete with that size in this district. When you got the Frazier brothers down low, and you also got somebody like Nick Partey and Coach Kraft is very good at having people know their role, and also they'll kind of, I won't say as Devin would know, the old school coaches say, junk it up. They'll sit there, hey, we're not going to do what we've been doing. We're going to change it up for this particular game to slow down this particular person. And a lot of people don't do that because they go, this is our system, this is what we do. So I have a funny feeling that the Bulldogs are primed for a run. They're kind of like, I don't know how you could be in first place and go under the radar, but they're kind of under the radar to be in first place.
Maybe it has something to do with that 6-team district and not as many teams and stuff. I don't know. I guess we can kind of keep going just in sequential order here. So we'll shift a little bit to 11-5A and talk a little bit about a couple teams I cover at Carrollton-Farmers Branch. And I'm glad you guys are here because maybe you can help me make sense of this district here. So, first place we have Highland Park cruising along at 6-1.
Are you surprised? Who beat them?
Dallas Conrad gave them their only loss in district, actually. So, no, I'm not surprised to see them in first. It's a pretty good all-around athletic program. Conrad. But yes, Conrad got the win. So you have Highland Park at 6-1. Then we have a massive 5-team tie for second between Conrad, Bryan Adams, Newman Smith, Turner, and Woodrow Wilson. They're all 4-3. Then you have 7th place, you have Creekview at 2-5, and then in the cellar, Thomas Jefferson at 0-7. But yeah, so halfway through, and we still have 6 teams clearly in the playoff hunt. You have a 7th team that's only 2 games back. So I don't see anybody catching Highland Park, to be honest. So,
well, but if Conrad beat them, and Conrad is right there with all those other teams, it shows you that they're not just some juggernaut running away with the district. I mean, they're still within
I don't know what to make of Conrad. I don't know if they're, I don't know what the circumstances were of that game, but obviously they're the only team that beat them, and Highland Park had been cruising in their other wins. But then they turn around to slip up to some of these other schools, so you don't know if kind of what's going on there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this district plays out.
Well, and it's hard because we don't cover some of those DISD teams directly or Highland Park. But as far as your teams go, I mean, were they expected to contend for playoff berths?
I thought kind of in this district they would. The last couple of years in the District 14-5 they were in, I wasn't expecting a whole lot, although they did still have some good seasons. Creekview had a good run. Newman Smith was in. Creekview actually made the third round of the playoffs 2 years ago. So I thought they would equate themselves well. I knew Highland Park would be good. I figured Woodrow would be good. But I was I'm a little surprised that Turner is hanging in there at 4-3, actually in front of Creekview. Newman Smith is the one I was expecting to kind of be the cream of the crop of the Carrollton schools, and they're hanging in there, but like I said, this is just a major jam-packed district. It's hard to even kind of figure out anything right now.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, but I mean, halfway through, you have 6 teams, 5-way tie for second. You just don't see that very often.
No, not at this stage.
No, not at all.
Should make for a lot of fun down the stretch.
I guess truly every game is important in that district. And then you have a team, like I said, Creekview. They're kind of laying in the weeds there at 2-5, but they've shown that they can maybe throw a little wrench in these down the second half. Devin, I want to move on to 13-5A.
Yeah.
Where you have a pretty tightly packed district there as well, with Lancaster at 6-0 in first. Then you have Kaufman, North Forney, and Poteet all tied for second at 4-2. West Mesquite is in fifth alone at 2-4. Terrell in sixth at 1-5, and Forney in last place at 0-6. What are your early impressions there at the midpoint, Devin?
Well, we talked about Highland Park not being clear head and shoulders above the rest. I can't really say the same thing in this district.
Yeah.
Lancaster, the number 1 team in the state.
What's new, right?
And they've just overwhelmed pretty much everybody. Poteet, to their credit, did give them a game. They lost 79-71, but they hung with them pretty close. But then Poteet came back and had a hiccup last Friday against Kaufman to fall back into that tie for that 3-way tie for second place. So, Poteet has been an intriguing team. That they've got some senior leadership in the backcourt with Tyler Jones, DJ Bassey's a senior. He's 6'9", gives them that presence on the inside. But I really think the X factor for them going forward is Devin Martin. He's just a sophomore. He was the offensive newcomer of the year in football at wide receiver, 6'5", 250. Mm-hmm. But he's just a great athlete. He can bang down low, but he'll grab a rebound and he'll run the fast break.
Yeah.
He's just that kind of player. He scored 37 against Lancaster in their loss, and just since he joined the team, he's their leading scorer. He's their leading rebounder. He leads them in assists.
He does it all.
Yeah. He's just one of those players, and you saw it last Friday when he didn't play. The difference because I think Kaufman is a solid team. They've got a Dylan Gunter, who's a 6'9" kid of their own, who dropped back and hit the 3. He hit 4 threes the other night. Again, could also score down low. But I think Poteet, with Devin Martin, is the second best team in this district. Again, I was impressed with what I saw from Dylan Guntner and Kaufman. North Forney was kind of a hard luck team last year. They finished last in the district, but their 10 district, they beat the district champion Roy City, and of their 10 losses, 5 of them went to overtime.
Wow.
Yeah, and 8 of them were by 5 points or less. So it was just one of those hard luck teams that kind of had breaks go their way. West Mesquite, we'll have to see if they can turn it on. They're obviously going to have to beat a couple of those teams ahead of them in the standings, as well as take care of business. They're very guard oriented. They have a lot of different guys that can step up at different times. Dylan Wright is kind of their guy that obviously signed to play football, wide receiver at Texas A&M. Just a great athlete. Runs the break, gets out there on the and is a presence down low as well at 6'5", 6'6" frame. But West Mesquite's going to have to, number one, take care of business, but they're also going to have to pull a couple upsets along the way to get back into it.
When you look at Poteet, obviously no shame being behind Lancaster in the standings, but as you mentioned, they were competitive in that game. When you look at what they did in non-district and how they're moving through this district right now, do you think this is a team that can still make some playoff noise? Obviously, you don't have to win your district to make a deep run in March there, or February, I guess.
Yeah, and it's tough to tell as far as what the playoff landscape is going to hold as far as matchups go. I think Poteet, when they're at full strength, is a team that could go 2-3 rounds deep. Again, they've got some veteran leadership in the backcourt. Again, and DJ Bucy, their 6'9" center, is a matchup problem for a lot of teams, and people don't have that. He's not the biggest guy in terms of build, but he's
still 60.
But and he's got a decent, a very good low post game. But again, I think if Devin Martin's there, who's kind of the complete package, he just adds a different dimension to that team. And I would be shocked if they didn't make the playoffs. I expect them to probably win the second seed behind Lancaster. And in that case, going into the playoffs as a second seed, I think their full expectation would be to go 2-3 rounds deep.
Do you think anybody in that district or anybody in the North District can knock off Lancaster, keep them from coming out the region?
Well, it's just tough to say. Lancaster is just so deep.
They're 1-10.
Yeah, I mean, they have multiple guys can score 20 points a night, and it's just. I remember 2-3 years ago they played West Mesquite in the regional championship game, and West Mesquite it was a great team, athletic, and it was like Lancaster was from another planet. I mean, they just ran West Mesquite. They beat them by 30 in a regional championship game. And it's just those are the kind of teams that they roll out there year in, year out. And once you get matched up against them, it doesn't matter how much scouting you can do. If you don't have the athletes to be able to contain them, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And so Lancaster, I think, is unquestionably the favorite out of that region, maybe, if not the state.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Look for us to watch the Wild Wild West. That is,
there you go. Well,
5A basketball.
There's our looks at District 10, 11, and 13 at the district midpoint here. So thanks, guys, for stopping by to check us out for this week's podcast, and we will see y'all next week.